Morning, everyone.
Morning, Randy.
Morning. I guess it was about several weeks ago that we left off. I don't know if you remember, but we left off on Pontius Pilate.
Right. You want one?
From then to now, I learned a few more things about Pontius Pilate from a historical point of view. So I added a few more things about him. It's going to actually be a lot of history about Pontius Pilate, and then we'll be talking also about the Samaritans and what they were like in the first century. So what I have here is these are all the Roman governors. If you're wondering what all this Latin is up here, this is all the Roman governors from when Herod the Great was king of the Jewish people. He was king of the Jews. The kingdom was split amongst his three sons, and one of them was wicked. That was Herod Archelaus. So a delegation went to Caesar Augustus. Caesar Augustus said, okay, well, you can have a Roman governor. So they got a Roman governor. This was in 6 AD, and it was relatively peaceful for about 20 years until Judea got a Roman governor by the name of Pontius Pilatus, which we know as Pontius Pilate. So I'm going to be covering him, and we're getting closer to eventually what became the Jewish-Roman War. Down, this is in 66 AD, but I'm going to cover, this is about almost the halfway point. So last time we were talking about Pontius Pilate. He had a problem with respecting the Jewish laws and customs. He would bring images of the Caesars, of Tiberius and Augustus. He would bring them into the Jewish city, which is, for the Jewish people, this is the holy city. We don't want graven images in our city. These four governors respected those wishes, but then along comes Pontius Pilate, and things get very, very tense in Judea. Because this is what I was saying about the kingdom was divided. King Herod's kingdom was divided amongst his. These are two brothers here, Archelaus and Antipas, and this is their half brother Philip. So the kingdom was divided. Then Archelaus is gone. He's banished because of his cruelty to the Jewish people. So Caesar Augustus gives them a Roman governor to run things. His name is Coponius. We don't really know much about Coponius other than there was a door in the temple named after Coponius, and some of the speculation is that door was named because there's a story about Josephus records about the Samaritans who didn't get along with the Jews at the time. They snuck in a bag of bones and dumped them on the temple, rendered it unclean just before Passover. So supposedly it happened during the reign of Coponius. So supposedly that's why that door in the temple was called that. But we don't really know much about it. It was relatively quiet. I mean, this governor had a thing with firing high priests. When he came into office in Judea, the high priest was Annas. He fired 3 more high priests. Then he finally appointed his son-in-law, Caiaphas. So, but basically, Annas and Caiaphas were kind of sharing high priesthood anyway by the time we got to Pontius Pilate, so it really didn't make much difference. So again, here's 20 years later, there's Pontius Pilate, and these sons of Herod are still ruling up in Galilee and up near the Syria region. This is a little more accurate. Now this is Josephus' account of this. This is review from last time, but he had an issue with respecting the laws of Judea. This was one account where he brought these standards into the city. The people were upset. They went 75 miles up to Caesarea Maritima, where his palace was, They asked him to take away the images. The description of Pilate is he's very stubborn. He won't give in to people. It's kind of my way or the highway. So after 6 days, he brought them into the stadium, all the Jewish people that were requesting that he take these images out, and he threatened them with death if they didn't go back home to Jerusalem. This is actually the place where it happened. This is Pilate's palace here, and this is the hippodrome where Josephus records it happening. He surrounded the Jewish people with 3 rings wide of Roman soldiers. They said, all right, well then take our lives. We're not giving, we want these images taken out. Pilate's like, what do I do now? I'm in trouble. So he knows he's gotta give in. He eventually gives in, and he removes the images. There's another account. This is Philo of Alexandria. I'm not sure how they know he looks like this, because this is 2,000 years ago, but this is Philo of Alexandria. He's a Jewish philosopher. This is his account of Pontius Pilate, and Josephus lived after Pontius Pilate, but Philo lived during the time of Pilate. So he's writing this. This is the embassy to Caligula. This is his account that Pilate brought these gilt shields into Jerusalem in the palace of Herod, which is Pilate's other palace, which is in Jerusalem. And he got more people angry. This is probably what the issue was. Is it said "Son of the Divine Augustus"? And they didn't want anything in the holy city saying "Son of the Divine Augustus." This is what the coins say also. This is Pontius Pilate's palace. This is a model of Pontius Pilate's palace in Jerusalem. The Jewish people got the Herod sons involved. They're like, you discuss with Pilate about getting these things out of here. So his description of Pontius Pilate is inflexible, merciless, very obstinate. He's like, there was peace with these 4 governors, but now there's a new governor, there's a new kid on the block, and the peace is going away. He's not honoring their laws, their customs. So he writes a letter to Tiberius, let me leave these things, I'm honoring you. Tiberius sends a nasty letter back to Pontius Pilate, you get these things out of here, respect their laws, respect their wishes. Tiberius didn't want a war with the Jewish people. This is Philo's description of Pilate, his corruption, his rudeness, his acts of pillage, his habit of insulting people, his cruelty, his continual murders of people untried and uncondemned, and his inhumanity. So this guy obviously, Philo does not like Pilate. So now we go on. So Tiberius is very angry, and he writes a letter, get those things out of there, bring them up to Caesarea Maritima, into the temple of Tiberius's father or stepfather is Caesar Augustus, so they had built a temple for him, and there's the temple where it ended up. There's another account of Pilate's cruelty. This is actually in the Gospel of Luke. We're not exactly sure what happened, but it sounds like Pilate did an act of cruelty. He killed these Galileans untried on the temple. So here's another account. He wanted to build an aqueduct in Jerusalem, but there wasn't the funds. He wanted to get the funds from the temple. He went into the temple, took their funds to build this aqueduct. They weren't happy. They protested. Pilate said, I'm going to put down this rebellion. He sends his soldiers in disguised as Jewish men with clubs hidden underneath their capes. Then he orders the men to beat them. He disperses the riot. It's known as the Aqueduct Riot. This is part of Jewish history. So he ends the uprising, but this is another mark against Pontius Pilate, which is going to eventually catch up to him. So this is some article. Notorious Pontius Pilate is the one who built Jerusalem aqueduct. Study finds. So these archaeologists believe that this is the aqueduct in Jerusalem that Josephus was talking about, that Pilate stole these temple funds for. Again, this is Haaretz News. Guy was spelunking in the shafts through mud. Looks like he was having fun, I guess. Mud and chilly water discovered the aqueduct's cutting-edge method of construction. New research suggests that the Roman prefect Pontius Pilate is the one that built the Bayer Aqueduct, the most sophisticated ancient aqueduct of the Jerusalem area. Now, there's all these marks against Pilate. Finally, this is his last recorded act of cruelty before he's kicked out of there. This is the end of Pontius Pilate's reign. As you can see, it was some of these governors, they're only 3 years. He's 3 years. Pontius Pilate is almost 11 years. So, but the Romans the Jews had enough of him. The Samaritans had enough of him. This is the last account. This one Josephus records. Now this happens to the Samaritans. It says, but the nations of the Samaritans did not escape with tumults. The man who excited them. Now he doesn't mention who this person was, but this person is deceiving these Samaritans. The Samaritans have a belief that Mount Gerizim is where everything happened. This is the holy mountain. So it doesn't say who this man is, but basically he says he's a liar. He thought it a little consequence, and he contrived everything so that the multitude might be pleased. So he bid them to get together upon Mount Gerizim, which is by them looked upon as the most holy. So this is the Samaritans look at Mount Gerizim as the most holy of mountains. They don't believe it's in Jerusalem. And assured them that when they were come thither, he would show them the sacred vessels which were laid under that place, because Moses put them there. Now, this is, the Samaritans bought this lie that there was, we're going to go find the Ark of the Covenant, we're going to go find all these, this guy sent them on an archaeological dig. This is the archaeological dig for the Ark of the Covenant. So, yeah, you got that right.
Yeah.
Indiana Jones.
I had to throw that in there.
Oh, she had somewhere.
Yeah, so he sends them on this archaeological dig for the Ark of the Covenant. And the Samaritans are like, oh, we gotta find this. When we find this, I don't know what they were thinking. We're gonna build a temple on Mount Gerizim and don't let the Jewish people know about it, that we have the Ark of the Covenant. So it says Moses never came himself beyond. So this is the translator of Josephus's writing saying, Josephus is possibly being sarcastic because Josephus is a Jewish Pharisee. He's like, ha ha ha, we know Moses never even went into the promised land. He died on Mount Nebo. He never got to enter the promised land because God told him to speak to the rock, and he struck it twice, so he wasn't allowed to enter the promised land. So, the Samaritans, according to this account, had a belief that the ark and other sacred vessels were, by God's command, laid up or hidden in Mount Gerizim. So this was the foolish foundation that the Samaritans went upon. This is actually where Moses ended. This was the end of the road for Moses as far as his earthly body, his mortal body. I don't know who these people are, but I just think a picture is more interesting when you have people in it. As you can see, Moses never made it to Nablus. Nablus was 66 kilometers away. This is the end of the road for Moses here. Again, in his mortal body, this is the end road for him. Nablus was next to Mount Gerizim. So this Deuteronomy, the Lord spoke to Moses. Mount Nebo is where it ended, over against Jerusalem. So he got to see the promised land, but he never got to enter it. So God told him to go up the mountain and die. He was 120 years old at the time. So, we're more sophisticated today. We know that the Ark of the Covenant probably ended up in a warehouse somewhere between Shippensburg and Allentown on the 8178 corridor. And these two guys, they stuck it in a box, and maybe someday it'll get found. So this is Pontius Pilate again. It says, so these people on this archaeological dig, these Samaritans, were armed. So they were going up the mountain. Obviously, if you see all these armed people and you're the governor of Judea, you're not going to like this. Are they trying to start an insurrection? They were probably armed because if they did find the Ark of the Covenant, they didn't want the Jews to have them, because these are the Samaritans. They're always fighting against the Jews. So it says, Pilate prevented their going up by seizing upon the roads with a great band of horsemen and footmen, who fell upon those that were gotten together in the village. And when it came to an action, some of them they slew, and others of them they put to flight, and took a great many alive, the principal of which, and also the most potent of those that fled away, Pilate ordered to be slain. Now, at this time in Judea, they did have representation. Pilate wasn't just a king that could do whatever he wanted. Pilate had a boss. His boss was the governor of Syria to the north. That was a more important province. The governor of Syria was called a legate. He had control of legions. Pontius Pilate didn't have control of legions. He just had cohorts, which was 400 or 500 soldiers, but he didn't have control over legions. So this is his boss. The Samaritans are sending a senate to him, saying, "Look what this guy did." Now, so there's all these accusations against him. We saw, even in the Gospel of Luke, he slaughtered these people on these Galileans on the temple without there was no trial. There was so Vitellius. So what happens is Pilate's deposed now. He's sent to Rome. He has to appear before the Emperor Tiberius to give an account of his governorship. The Jewish people also send people there. The Samaritans send people there. So this Vitellius, he's the governor of Syria. He has to send in a replacement for Pontius Pilate. So here's this guy Marcellus. He's not actually. He's more of an overseer. He's a temporary replacement before the Caesar has to decide who he's going to put in to replace Pontius Pilate. So Pilate goes to Rome, and he has to answer to the emperor. So it says, so this is Josephus' account of the end of Pontius Pilate's governorship in Judea. So Pilate, when he tarried 10 years in Judea, made haste to Rome. So, but before he could get to Rome, the emperor dies. So this is all we have. The account that Josephus has just stops right there. We don't exactly know what happened to Pontius Pilate. There's different accounts. There's traditions. They kind of go in all different directions. One of them is that he ended up in Vienna, France. He was banished there. It could be. There's also a medieval legend that he's buried in what's today now a traffic circle in France. Again, that's just as legend dating that this person doesn't thinks that's just a legend, not a true story. But so I don't know about that. But so we were also talking about Pontius Pilate. There was a archaeological. There's a stone that was found that has Pontius Pilate, prefect of Judea. That's now in the Israel Museum. That was found in 1961. Now, other things about Pontius Pilate that we know, the coins also tell a story about Pontius Pilate. So, and that's a part of history that's very difficult to destroy. Especially copper coins. They're not worth much. They fall out of people's pockets. People drop them. They fall between stones, and who's going to go dig up a almost worthless copper coin? So there's thousands of coins all over Judea. When they do archaeological digs, they find these things. So I was saying with these governors, Judea was relatively peaceful. You can see this Roman governor, he's got a wheat head, palm trees, clusters of dates, very, non-confrontational to the Jewish people, even though you're a Roman pagan governor. This is a close-up of it. Now this is the next governor, the second governor of Judea. Again, nothing, wheat head, palm branches, date clusters. It doesn't really look much different than the first governor. Now, this is the fourth governor. He also minted coins. Not all these governors, there's a huge long list of Roman governors. Not all of them minted coins. As far as I know, there was only 6 that minted coins. Now, this is Governor Felix. Now, that was the governor that put Paul in jail for 2 years. As you can see, it's their military equipment, which is probably not what the Jewish people wanted to see, because it's a reminder that they've been conquered by the Roman people. So it's shields and spears, but again, it's not as confrontational as what Pontius Pilate coins look like. There's Felix coins again, Governor Felix. Again, he's the one that put Paul in prison for 2 years, and when his 2-year governorship was over, oh wait, no, actually it was longer. But when his governorship was over, he just left Paul in prison, and he had the next governor, Festus, take care of to figure out where Paul was going to go. But so this is as you see. So at the time, Nero was the emperor, so he put Nero's name on the coins. Now this is Festus. This is the governor that Paul appeared before in the famous trial where Paul said, "I appeal to Caesar," and he said, "To Caesar you shall go." So this is his coins, again, not confrontational. Now here's Pontius Pilate's coins. Now I was looking at them. I'm trying to figure out what all this is. And again, these coins tell a story about Pontius Pilate. This is Pilate's issue, his first coins that he issued. This is what's called a cymbalum or a ladle. This is his 30 AD issue. He had a 29 AD issued coin, and this is 30 AD. I was trying to figure out what that was. I was like, is that some kind of fern, like in the spring coming out of the ground? But actually, it's a pagan symbol. This is somebody turning it into a necklace. I guess if you wanted to wear a Pontius Pilate coin necklace, you could. I was looking into the coins. This is actually what it is. What Pontius Pilate put on the coins was a Roman pagan symbol. This is actually Caesar Augustus and his wife Livia as a priest and priestess. Here's the symbols that are on Pontius Pilate's coins: a simplum and the lituus is what it's called. So I looked these up, and it says the lituus was a crooked wand similar in shape to the top part of some Western European, used as a cult instrument in ancient Roman religions by augurs. Augurs are the Roman priests to mark out a ritual space in the sky. The passage of birds through this templum indicated divine favor or disfavor for a given undertaking. So Pontius Pilate, he's putting these pagan symbols, which are divination symbols. So he's basically doesn't have the sensitivity to the Jewish people that the other governors have. So again, with his coins, he's stirring up controversy in Judea. And it says augury was a Greco-Roman religion practice of observing the behavior of birds. So they would use the behavior of birds to determine whether they should go into battle or not, or whether they should build a temple here or not. So they were contacting their Roman gods. It was called taking the auspices. So they used this to determine whether the gods could be favorable or unfavorable. The other symbol was a simplum. This is another pagan symbol where the Roman pagan priests would taste wine, and then they would pour it on the animal that they were about to sacrifice. So it says the simplum was often shown on coins of the Roman emperors in the 1st and 2nd centuries, as well as on consular and colonial medals. So another thing we have about Pontius Pilate is this coin that was discovered this was discovered in the Herodium. It has of Pilate. It says Pilato, which means of Pilate. So it probably wasn't a coin that Pilate wore, but it has his name on it. So the belief is that an administrator would stamp some kind of item or some kind of letter that belonged to Pilate that was going to be sent to him. This coin was discovered in 1969, but it sat in a box for like almost 50 years until somebody said, "Ooh, what's in that box?" So they cleaned it up and they're like, "Oh, it's got Pontius Pilate's name on it." So that was until 2018.
About how big are the coins you talk? I mean, silver dollar size or penny size?
I think they're actually about a penny. Like I think actually a little smaller than a penny.
Oh, really?
Or about the same size as a penny.
Okay. Huh. Okay.
So just my thought, you're looking at Pontius Pilate at 26 to 36 AD, and this is my takeaway. I understand a little bit more why the Jews so much hated Matthew for being a tax collector, you know, and supporting the Romans. And also, why Simon the Zealot and all the Zealots felt like they needed to do something because of the oppression and even without trial that some of the people were being slaughtered. But also the misunderstanding that they had of Jesus, who more than ever, they felt like they needed a savior from Rome.
Right.
It wasn't just that there was another country or another people that were governing them. They were really evil and wicked towards the Jews.
Right.
And so it just helps you understand why that misunderstanding was there, you know, why the expectation, and even why Judas, I mean, the whole expectation of Christ saving them from the Romans. It just helps you kind of get that picture, besides supporting history, you know, what New Testament is, you know, showing and sharing, and I don't know, it just helps you get that picture of how amazing it was to have these disciples come together and Christ tell them to love each other, because I mean, without Christ, they couldn't have loved each other very well. Anyway.
I think it's interesting that, Syria to the north was relatively quiet. They had a Roman governor too. They didn't have the problems that Judea had. I mean, they were also pagan too. So for the Romans, it was like, hey, you guys are kind of like us, but Judea was very different. They have one God, and they have all these, laws and rules that the Romans not only. I mean, some of them didn't understand. I think they had cultural sensitivity training. And these guys seem to pass it, like, hey, you guys are going to an interesting province. Just to let you know, you should do this, you shouldn't do that. Otherwise, you're going to stir up a revolt with these people. And I think it's interesting that it was quiet for like 20 years, and then here we are in around 26 AD. They get one of the worst governors, happens to be Pontius Pilate. So the Jewish historians are recording him as a tyrant, cruel, unyielding, insensitive, not giving people a fair trial, putting down revolts without, the way, in a violent manner. So, what I was saying about this ring here is found on the east tower of the Herodium. The Herodium was 3 miles southeast of Bethlehem. There's the picture of where they found the Pontius Pilate coin. Now, I want to talk, since we were talking about the Samaritans, I also wanted to talk about the Samaritans also, the history of them, because that's actually, Josephus mentions the Samaritans quite a bit. He has a bit of distaste for them, being a Jewish Pharisee. He says quite a bit of negative things, but it's kind of understandable since they're constantly getting into little tiffs with each other. So this is an article about the Samaritans today. There's not a whole lot of them. There's only like 900. So this says, perched above the West Bank city of Nablus, the Samaritans say theirs is the true religion of the ancient Israelites. The article's 20 to 15. So the article's called the Middle East Eye, and it says that there's a lot of intrigue. Samaritans have tours about what their life is like, and the ethno-religious group descended from the ancient Semitic inhabitants of the region. The Samaritans say theirs is the true religion. Samaritan is Abrahamic and closely related to Judaism, which the Samaritans say was altered and amended after being brought back by those returning from Babylonian exile. Now, I think the 1.5 million number was probably the time of the 1st century when Josephus is describing Samaria. So it was a significant population. They had quite a bit of representation. So when Pilate, slaughtered a whole bunch of them on Mount Gerizim, they had quite a representation to go to Syria and say, hey, look what this guy did. He needs to go. So now, as you can see, in 1917, there was only 150 of them left. Now today, when the article was written, 700. Now there's 900 Samaritans today. I heard that there's three guys for every girl now in Samaria. Not like Surf City where there's 2 girls for every boy. But this is 3 guys for every girl. So if the guys want to find a wife, they are going online and they're looking into Ukraine, and there's Ukrainian women that they have to convert to Samaritanism in order to marry these guys, but they are. So, how can we keep the Samaritans going? Well, we have to find wives in Ukraine. So this is the story about them now. It's actually in a West Bank place, which is very difficult to get to if you're a tourist and you want to see some of the places there. It says the Samaritans on Mount Gerizim hold both Israeli and Palestinian ID cards. They have interesting names like Abdullah Cohen. Like Abdullah is about as Arabic as you can get, and Cohen is about as Jewish as you can get. And you know, if you're looking at an ID, Abdullah Cohen, they're probably like, oh, it must be a half-breed. So, so about half of them live in the city of Nablus, which is also called Shechem, which is the biblical city of Shechem. It says they moved to the mountaintop community when violence broke out during the first Intifada. Samaritans say that Mount Gerizim was the original holy place of Israel. So this is the major difference between the Jewish people and the Samaritans, is the place of worship. And again, they trace they say, well, we have had a continuous high priest we're at 133 now, all the way back to Aaron. We've had a continuous high priest. This is them today. This is them on Mount Gerizim. Now they only believe they only believe in the first 5 books of the Bible, and they have alterations in them, which is why they believe Mount Gerizim is the place. They actually changed the text of the first 5 books. Now this is a view of Mount Gerizim, Mount Ebal. These are some famous places. Sychar. There's where the Samaritan temple used to be, which was actually destroyed by the Jews in 110 BC. Also, you can see Jacob's Well is a Greek Orthodox church there now. I don't know if anybody know what this place is? I don't know if you've ever seen. This is actually Joseph's tomb. From the Bible we know, and so this whole area there's a lot of biblical significance there. There's a lot of important things that happened between Mount Gerizim and Mount Ebal, but it's not the mountain that they were supposed to worship and set up a temple. So it says, "In the bones of Joseph, which the children of Israel brought out of Egypt, buried they in Shechem in a parcel of ground which Jacob bought of the sons of Hamor, the father of Shechem, for 100 pieces of silver, and it became the inheritance of the children of Joseph." Now here it is today. There's an IDF, a Jewish IDF soldier. So this is a place that a lot of people like to visit, but it's a difficult place to get to because it's a Palestinian town. It's in the West Bank. There's a population of about 125,000. I don't even know if any Jewish people live there. I think it's just Samaritans and Muslims, maybe some Christians. If you see the date on this, Joseph's tomb, April 13th, 2022. They're fixing it after it was vandalized. So this is a place of frequent vandalism. Now this is another important event that happened in Shechem. I guess you can probably see from the satellite that the terrain looks like an amphitheater. You have a semicircle here and a semicircle here. This is where Joshua brought. He has a 1 million on one side and 1 million on the other side, and it's like, well, how are 1 million people going to hear another? It says it's 1 mile away. How are 1 million people sitting on one side and one person yelling going to hear with another million people on the other side, and somebody yelling? Somebody's yelling the blessings on one side and somebody's yelling the curses on the other side, but it's actually, God brought them to this place as a natural amphitheater. As you can see, again, it's a natural amphitheater. It says, well, there's actually scientists that went into the 1800s. Scientists have tested this natural amphitheater many times, and it works. Now, today there's a bunch of high-rise apartment buildings. There's over 100,000 people that live there, so
Doesn't work anymore.
So, but there's another look at it. You can imagine 1 million Hebrews here and 1 million Hebrews here.
Wow.
Sounds like a noisy place.
Yeah, it's probably, I mean, it's a thing over in the Middle East to honk your horn all the time. I don't know what it is, but why is everybody beeping their horn?
Yeah.
It's like worse than New York, like worse than Manhattan. Everybody just beeps their horn. But it's probably very noisy there now with everybody beeping their horns of their cars. So this is in 1879. This guy was on a tour of the Holy Land. Again, there was hardly anybody living there in Shechem in 1879. So he did an acoustic test before all those skyscrapers were there. One guy went on one side and yelled something. He's like, "I can hear you perfectly clear." So, again, this is what I was saying about the deep semicircle recess that was there. So it says, "I read, and they were to pronounce the Amen after each curse or blessing. Brother Taylor heard me distinctly, and I could hear his response." So this is the 1879 account. Now this is, again, restating that the Samaritans believed that they were in the right place. Now, today, I was talking about the Jacob's Well. There was a church built. It's called the Church of Saint Fotina at Jacob's Well. Now this was like a third or fourth church, I believe, that was built on top of Jacob's Well. This one was built in 1999. I think the one before it was destroyed in an earthquake. There was one before it that was made in like 1100 AD. There was one before that was in like 300 something. It was a Byzantine church, where actually the tiles for the floor are still there. The mosaic tiles from the 3rd century or 4th century. I was watching a video about Joel Kramer. He's an archaeologist, and I couldn't find a picture of the mosaic floor, but in his video he has this 4th century Byzantine church mosaic floor that was there at Jacob's Well. There it is today. As you can see, all the high-rise apartments built around the church. And if you want to visit it, I can see they cut their hours from 2 to 5 to 2 to 4. Guess they got tired of people not wanting to leave, like, "Oh, let's change it to 4 so we can get out of here." Jacob's Well, kindly show respect for the sanctity of this. I guess their English isn't very good. I think it's supposed to say site, but so this is the church's modern mosaic of the well. That's what's there. It looks very Greek Orthodox. And there's a close-up of the actual well. Again, this is a clip from Joel Kramer's video. I guess he measured it. It's 151 feet deep. This is a pretty deep well. This was built by Jacob and his sons. There was no record of the 12 sons, any of them dying, so I assume they dug this well safely and they had good scaffolding. I wouldn't want to be digging 151 feet deep in that. This is, well, basically when photography started coming out, this is some really old photos of it. As you can see, there was a Crusader church from 1100s. That was destroyed, but the well is underneath there. There's a picture, 1880 to 1900, of Jacob's Well. As you can see, there's, I don't know if they're Bedouins. This is 1912. Looks like there's one woman there, and she's fetching the water. She's got a giant jug on her head. She probably has a pretty strong neck, I would imagine, carrying those things all the time. There's another woman with a bucket getting water from the well. Now it has a hand crank, so it's much easier. Now this is a famous Russian painter, Vasily Dmitrievich Polanov, if I said that right. But anyway, I put that painting up there because he seems to have the right idea. It says Jesus was weary. He walked like 20 miles that day. It's 12 in the afternoon. It's super hot. And it says he was sitting at the well. So I don't think their skin was that. They look very Russian. I don't think their skin was that light skinned because I think they were being in the sun all day. They probably had a pretty good tan. But so here's a view from Mount Gerizim. There's Jacob's well down there. There's what we showed earlier, Joseph's tomb. There's Sychar, where the woman of the well was coming from. There's the ruins of Shechem. So there's Mount Ebal. So there's a lot there. There's a lot of biblically important places. Now this is Josephus. He's writing in the Jewish War about what Samaria was like back in that day. And I was actually a little bit surprised. I was thinking it more like just a bit dustier and drier. But he says, now as to the country of Samaria, it lies between Judea and Galilee. It begins at a village that is in the great plain called Gineah and ends at the Akrabim Tabarki and is entirely of the same nature with Judea. For both countries are made up of hills and valleys and are moist enough for agriculture and are very fruitful. So I would imagine it would have to be fruitful if it's going to support 1.5 million people. It's not. It's probably about a little bigger than Lancaster County. They have abundance of trees and are full of autumnal fruit, both of which grows wild, and that which is in the effect of cultivation. They are not naturally watered by many rivers, but derive their chief moisture from rainwater, of which they have no want. And minus the occasional drought, that they do have droughts there. We know from the book of Acts that there was a famine in the land. And for those rivers which they have, all their waters are exceeding sweet, by reason also of the excellent grass they have. Their cattle yield more milk than do those in other places. And what is the greatest sign of excellency and of abundance? They each of them, Judea and Samaria, are very full of people. So this is a beautiful, lush land that's agriculturally prosperous, has lots of people living in it. Now, this is an account that I wanted to go through about the Samaritan woman. This is pretty, famous chapter, John chapter 4. It says, therefore, when the Lord knew that the Pharisees had heard that Jesus made and baptized more disciples than John, though he himself did not baptize, but his disciples, he left Judea and departed again to Galilee, but he needed to go through Samaria. Now, I want to stop there. When it says he needed to go through Samaria, let me just show you. Now, I think that the word need is there was a divine appointment with this woman had. Need as in there could have been other routes that he could have taken, but it also, if you remember, he said to Zacchaeus, he said, I must go to your house today. And did Jesus need to go to Zacchaeus' house? For Zacchaeus' sake, Jesus needed to go to that house for Zacchaeus. Jesus said salvation has come to this house. So this is what I think when he said he needed to go through Samaria. This woman, he needed to reach the Samaritan people, and he needed to reach them. He chose this woman to be the person that he was going to reach the Samaritan people through. So he came to a city of Samaria, which is called Sychar, near the plot of ground that Jacob gave to his son Joseph. And there's the route that he took. Now, some of the Pharisees would be like, well, this Samaria is unclean, I'm going to go the longer way. I'm going to take one of the longer routes. I don't want to go through Samaria. But Jesus and his disciples went through Samaria, through Sychar. Now it says, now Jacob's well was there. Jesus, therefore, being wearied from his journey, sat thus by the well. So fully God, fully man, he takes on the form of a man, but he suffers. We have a high priest. We don't have a high priest that cannot be sympathize with what we go through. He understands. He was weary. He was hot. He was thirsty. He experienced all those things. And it was about the 6th hour, which it's 12 o'clock. That's the hottest part of the day. A woman of Samaria came to draw water. Jesus said to her, give me a drink. For his disciples had gone away into the city to buy food. So notice how things are all panning out. All the disciples they're going food shopping. They're off at the Weiss and the Giant. These are the Samaritans. They can, it's kosher food. They can eat whatever there. It's not a pagan town. But they go off to buy food. They probably took the water jug too. There might have been somebody that said, hey, Jesus is thirsty, we have the water jug, should we bring it back? And there was probably somebody that said, no, you clown, he doesn't need a water jug, he can just... But, so it's just the woman's alone, and Jesus is there alone. If there was a whole bunch of Jewish disciples, I don't think this, would this conversation be able to even happen? So then the woman of Samaria said to him, how is it that you, being a Jew, ask a drink from me, a Samaritan woman? For Jews have no dealings with Samaritans. So she's quite bold and quite feisty. She's not shy. She's not like, oh, I better not talk to this guy. Now Jesus answered and said to her, if you knew the gift of God. So notice the word I emphasized here, it's a gift. And who it is who says to you, give me a drink, you would have asked him, and he would have given you living water. The woman said to him, sir, you have nothing to draw with, and the well is deep. We said earlier, the well is 151 feet deep. Where do you get that living water? Are you greater than our father Jacob, who gave us the well and drank from it himself, as well as his sons and his livestock? Jesus answered and said to her, whoever drinks of this water will thirst again, but whoever drinks of the water that I shall give him will never thirst. But the water that I shall give him will become in him a fountain of water springing up into everlasting life. The woman said to him, sir, give me this water, that I may not thirst nor come here to draw. Now, I don't know exactly what the woman was thinking at this time. I don't know if Jesus hadn't revealed yet who he was, so I don't know if she's thinking, boy, is this guy dehydrated or something? Is he overheated? I don't really know where he's going with this. So we don't know that for sure, but there was an expectation of the Messiah. I don't know if that was going partly through her head, but so Jesus said to her, go, call your husband and come here. The woman answered and said, I have no husband. Jesus said to her, you have said well, I have no husband, for you have had 5 husbands, and the one whom you now have is not your husband, in that you spoke truly. Now, we start off about a gift and eternal life. But then there's a problem. So this woman there's sin in her life, and Jesus is bringing that out. eternal life is a gift, but first, we have to deal with something. You know, she's a sinner, we're all sinners. So he's digging up something and she's it sounds like she's uncomfortable. I have no husband. He doesn't want to tell everything. I'm just imagining if you have had 5 husbands and the one you're now with is not your husband, I don't think you're going to want to go to a well when all the other women are there. You're probably going to be it's probably going to get very catty. I mean, I heard, one term, she's like a home wrecker, like, is this one of the women that was married to her, one of the women that's now married to one of her previous husbands, and you can just imagine all the gossip and all the, she doesn't want to be, she goes there at 12 o'clock in the afternoon, not when all the women are there, which is probably early in the morning or late at the day, not when it's hot, and which is why she's there alone. Again, you're going to be the talk of, all the conversation there. I can imagine what they would be saying about her. She had probably a reputation in the town, and it wasn't a good reputation. So it says, and this is another, what I see as a parallel story. We have Zacchaeus. Notice it says he's the chief among publicans, and he was rich. And how did he get rich? It says, go on, and he sought to see Jesus, who he was, and could not for the crowd, because he was of little stature. This is a common story we hear in Sunday school. We probably hear it when we're 5 years old. And he ran before and climbed up a sycamore tree to see him, for he was to pass that way. And Jesus entered and passed through Jericho. He told, and behold, there was a man named Zacchaeus, which is chief among the publicans. And when Jesus came to the place, he looked up and saw him and said unto him, Zacchaeus, make haste and come down, for today I must abide at thy house. Again, we saw the woman at the well. He needed to go through Samaria, even though he could have taken an alternate route, but I believe this was a divine appointment, just like with Zacchaeus. And he made haste and came down and received him joyfully. And when they saw it, they all murmured. Now this is, another thing. People are like, well, I'm better than that. That person's a sinner. I'm righteous. I'm a good person. But just like the woman at the well, Zacchaeus, everyone has the same problem. And eternal life is a gift, but we have to acknowledge this first. So it says that he was gone to be a guest with a man that was a sinner. Zacchaeus stood and said, and behold, unto the Lord, behold, Lord. Now Zacchaeus is calling him Lord. The half of my goods I give to the poor, and if I have taken anything from any man by false accusation, I restore him fourfold. Jesus said unto them, this day is salvation come to this house. For as much as he also is a son of Abraham, for the Son of Man is come to seek and to save that which was lost. So just like Zacchaeus, this woman, she's a lost person. Now, there's another, I see it as another parallel story. There's a thief on the cross, and he probably has a plaque over his head, criminal charge, thief. The charge is right over his head, from what I understand about history. So, one of the malefactors, which were railed on him, saying, if thou be the Christ, save thyself and us. But the other answered, rebuked him, saying, dost thou not fear God, seeing thou art in the same condemnation? And we indeed justly, for we receive the due reward of our deeds, but this man hath done nothing amiss. And he said unto Jesus, and again, Zacchaeus called him Lord. The thief on the cross, he called him Lord. What did Saul do? Saul, why do you persecute me? What should I do, Lord? And he said unto Jesus, Lord. Now, remember. So he's acknowledging, it sounds like he believes in eternal life, but he seems, I don't know what's going through his head at that time, but I don't know if he's thinking, boy, I'm on my way to the other place, you know. I'm off to hell, I'm surely going to hell. So he says, just remember me when thou comest into thy kingdom. And Jesus said unto him, now, he's down to the last hour or two of his life. And he's being executed right now for his charge, and he's recognizing we're getting what we deserve. And Jesus said unto him, verily I say unto thee, today thou shalt be with me in paradise. So, again, I see this as another parallel to the woman of the well, with the well springing up to eternal life. And I could go on about Mary Magdalene, who had 7 demons, who was the very first person who saw a resurrected Lord. Just one person. It was Mary Magdalene, who had 7 demons. Now, let's see, I think I'll stop here right in the middle of the woman of the well, because it's almost 12 o'clock. So next time I do this, I'll just leave off right here in John chapter 4. All right, well, thank you all for coming, and enjoy the nice weather today.
Thank you, Randy.